Hey guys, it's Green Ranger here, and I thought I'd today make for you a split guide as to how I play Boomkin. I've got two different setups I use, and I thought I'd just do a rundown on both. So I'm a PvPer. These are both PvP specs, both of them. One is the one I use for Arena, and the other one is what I use for Battlegrounds if I'm in a cleave, like RBG team. Okay. So, the first build I'm going to talk to you about is the one that it's my general build. It's the one I use for everything. It's high burst. I've put all my eggs in one basket, shall we say, and that basket is Star Surge, basically. So let me just go through what I've done for that. So first of all, I think probably most importantly is gear. What I've picked in terms of gear. I have gone full versatility for this. Every piece of versatility I can. Versatility trinket, on use extra versatility to put in my cooldown, versatility enchantments. I've actually gone as far as only having the 2 set bonus from the PvP gear, the 2 set bonus, and I've actually replaced all the other pieces of set bonus with versatility gear, which is brilliant because it means, if you watch my lovely stats down here, and obviously remember this is actually increased in PvP, I get to 24%, 25% outside, and in, I think it's 39% versatility in PvP. So the reason I like this spec is because it does the damage. In that short window of time, that's where the damage comes from. Because a lot of people stack Mastery, and Mastery is alright, but I prefer versatility because it also reduces the damage I take, and with Nature's Vigil and healing, that 3-minute cooldown burst window is pretty tough for some people to beat, like especially if you're with a good, like if you're in threes with another good DPSer, when you can solo kill stuff and you've got a teammate that kills them as well, then they're not really going to survive that. So then let's go on to talents. These are the talents that I take for Arena. Displacer Beast, because Wild Charge is situationally useful, but I like the blink part of Displacer Beast. It's just better. The movement speed increase at the end is just quite nice to have. In the second tier, Ysera's Gift. The passive heal, in my opinion, is better than Cenarian Ward, because Cenarian Ward can be purged, and Renewal is still useless. It just really is. I don't know why they think that as a Boomkin in arenas or whatever, you're only gonna need to heal yourself once every 2 minutes. That's ridiculous. So Ysera's Gift is the best one. The passive heal, because you're kiting, guys. Rejuve, Travel Form, kiting, and that goes with the glyph very well as well, which I'll go over when I get to glyphs in a second. On this tier, all of these are viable for different situations. So Typhoon is a great extra interrupt, and also for knocking people off stuff. Obviously in RBGs that's more required. Mass Entanglements is really good when you're against melee cleaves. You know, especially if you're the one being targeted or you need to peel for a healer. It's great to just or like a hunter and a warrior, you know, on you, and they summon a billion pets, and the warrior jumps in on you, and you just root all of them, and then displace a beast, and you're just gone. You're gone. Well, which is brilliant. So I personally stick with that as my generic one because I never see it as a bad thing to root someone and leave. It's got a nice cooldown, and Typhoon's not really as useful in a general situation. Fairy Swarm, very strong for kiting. Very good. Great against rogues as well, obviously. I'm going to be honest with you, I'm pretty lazy. For the most part, I can't be bothered to switch from Mass Entanglement to Fairy Swarm. I could, But then I'd have to like my solar beam's less effective just for the sake of not having that. I mean, as long as I'm on the ball with my dots, I'm not really fussed if they're hitting me. As a boomkin, trying to get away from stuff is useful, but constantly kiting them with fairy swarm means they're not hitting me, and I want them to hit me, so I get the instant cast procs. So I don't want to be too good at kiting. In terms of the level 60 tier talent, I know a lot of people have started taking Force of Nature because you can keep chucking them out for the instant roots every so often, and it's more like sustained damage. But I'm gonna be classic and stick with Incarnation because it's 15% damage. 30 seconds is a long time. I mean, it's pretty obvious when you're doing it. That's the only downside I'd say, is that you can't really say to someone, oh, what are you doing? I'm not cooldowning giant armored chicken. That's kind of obvious what I'm doing. Like, hey, what's that guy doing? Definitely using cooldown. So that's something to bear in mind. I mean, you can kind of get away with using the trees a lot more, but I mean, no one's going to care that you're using them because you're not doing anything. It's the armored form that, Incarnation, that really is doing the damage. In this tier, Incapacitating Roar, in my opinion, is basically useless if you're dotting stuff because it'll tag out your DPS. Ursul's Vortex is alright. I use it with Solar Beam if I have to take Fairy Swarm. That's basically what I do. If that's going there, if Mass Entanglement's going to Fairy Swarm, then in the level 75 tier, I'm taking Ursul's Vortex. As a general rule, I take Mighty Bash. Mighty Bash is the best one to have. The only time that I'd consider not taking it really is if I'm in a very stun-heavy team already. Then you don't really want to just be hitting someone with a 50-second cooldown for a 1 second or an immune on a stun. That's pretty stupid. Level 90 talents, in my opinion, there is only one choice, and it is Nature's Vigil. Because Nature's Vigil, especially if you're stacking versatility, it is amazing. I can't express this because I will try and put some like duel or battlegrounds or arena footage of this up on the channel at some point, but I can be on like 10% health and decide to pop my cooldowns, and the versatility increase and the Nature's Vigil will mean I'll end on full health and they'll end up dead. Like, it's a complete switch of position. It's amazing, and you can really use that knowledge that you're going to get some solid heals off to your advantage. You can play a lot more of a risky and mind confusing game against your opponent. So I'm all for Nature's Vigil. It's such a strong spell. And in the final talent tier, in this setup, I use Euphoria. Because out of the three, it's really the only one that's of any use in a burst setup. Stellar Flare isn't worth it because of the time it takes to cast that spell and the amount of times you're being interrupted. It's basically a waste of time. Balance of Power, not really necessary. You don't really want to be sitting there trying to stagger out your Moonfire and Sunfire. It's not like I've got 100 targets to dot, so you don't really need to worry about the duration extension on that, and the 10% damage is kind of negligible, so Euphoria all the way. Alright, so next up, we're on Glyphs. So, for Glyphs, I'm not a fan, I'm going to say that straight at the start, of taking Glyph of the Stars. I like being all astral form and space, it's cool, but it just makes it even more obvious when you pop Incarnation because that doesn't stay ghosty. That just becomes, out of nowhere, suddenly you are a giant armored chicken, and everyone's so aware of it that you'll find out, even with your trinket, getting rid of the first CC, they are going to just, any good team is going to just lock you out of that the whole time. So you don't want that to happen. So that's why I'm not really a fan of that. Plus, Flap is incredibly useful when people think they've got the upper hand on you by knocking you off something. Obviously, you need Glyph of Untamed Stars in terms of miners just to make sure they hit everything. We're not in a raid, we don't need to worry about pulling, so take that. And I've gone for Aquatic Form to increase my speed. Those are my miner glyphs. Get them out of the way. You can change those if you want, but I would honestly not advise taking Glyph of the Stars because unless you're happy to be even more noticeable when you're bursting. I personally like to try and get the first couple of spells off before they notice, and I think that helps. Okay, the other glyphs are Glyph of Cyclone, increasing the range of Cyclone spell by 5 yards. It's basically mandatory. It's a very boring glyph. Hey, increase the yardage by 5. Yay. That's going to make such a difference. But it does. It does. You'll be surprised how many times you've just managed to cyclone someone before they line of sight you around a pillar or something. That's pretty key. Glyph of Barkskin. When you pop it, 25% less chance to be critically hit. It's quite nice. I would argue that that's not even... I don't think people are stacking as much crit as they used to. I don't really feel that's as strong an ability as it used to be. So I'm thinking I might swap that out. I might take Glyph of Stampeding Roar maybe, which is one that I do like, increasing the radius of Stampeding Roar by 30 yards, and I can use it without having to change to bear form or cat form, which is alright, but I do like changing into bear form for the Frenzied Regeneration heal. So, you know, that's up for debate. The one that I would say you should take is Glyph of Shape Mender. Each time you activate a shapeshift form, you heal for 5% of the maximum health. It can only occur once every 5 seconds, but if you tag this in with Ysera's Gift, which is happening every 5 seconds, that's 4%. That's 5%. You're getting 9%. That's almost a tenth of your health every 5 seconds just by being a druid, basically, and changing form, which you will be doing once every 5 seconds. Really, unless you're being left alone. And if you're being left alone, you don't need the heals, so it works out either way. Win-win. Alright. In the RBG dot spec, it's a little bit of a different setup. So, first of all, I will switch to my gear. Oh, which apparently I haven't transmogged those shoulders the same as everything else. That's a bit weird, but oh well, we'll leave it. We'll leave it. So, in this setup, I'm stacking haste, basically. Haste and then mastery as much as I can on everything. Obviously, a couple of my things are overlapped, so versatility on my trinket, etc. Because like I said, my arena spec's my main spec. But if you were focusing this spec, then I would be putting haste on all of those. The idea being that in an RBG, you go to where the main fight is. You do not worry about what people are trying to burst down or anything. You're using your Starfalls, all your charges on Starfalls, and you're dotting everything forever. Just dot, and just cleave. Just make sure everything has got every dot at all times. And if you've got any extra time, you're making sure that at least, you know, one target is cycloned at all times. That's how you work that. And it's kind of messy, but you'll be doing so much damage to like a team. You know, if you're in a cleave team with like an Unholy Death Knight and a Shadow Priest, you can kill an entire team without really targeting any one individual. The healers will go out of mana so much faster than yours, and you've got more time to help peel for your healers because you're not trying to burst in this very important window of time. You can stop what you're doing and all your dots will still be ticking, so it's not a big deal. Once you set them up there, they're just there unless they're dispelled, so that's the advantage. In terms of talents, there's really only one change. Stellar Flare. Don't take Euphoria. Balance of Power I tried out and it wasn't doing as much damage as having Stellar Flare, because if you're in an RBG and you're committing to not doing anything else, you can sit there and dot things with Stellar Flare. It's got a cast time, that's annoying, but you can do it. You can just sit there, Moonfire, Stellar Flare, Moonfire, Stellar Flare. Make sure you've already got Starfall out. Moonfire, Stellar Flare, Moonfire, Stellar Flare, and then that'll change to Solar Flare, whatever the other one's called. I think it's Solar Flare. Can't remember what it's called. You know, the fiery one. And then just rinse and repeat. Make sure they're all up, and you'll just bleed damage. So that's really the only talent change. Glyphs will stay the same. It's quite a simple swap, really, guys. It's just if you're RBG cleaving, just dot everything. Use Stellar Flare and Starfall. You've got 4 dots going at that point on, and then just try and get that on everything, and make sure you're covering your healers and CCing. Sometimes I like helping to offset. If you're playing against another cleave team, I like then once I've got all my dots and everything, I then rejuve my entire team that I can see. Stuff it. You might as well if you can. You've got the extra time. That you're playing a patience game with this setup, guys.